is time for me to pick up my next read, which actually means it's time for Instagram to pick up my next read. So basically I have 3 different book options that I'm then going to post a poll of on my Instagram story, and then I'm going to let my followers vote for which book I should read next. And I've picked 3 different books that were kind of within a similar realm, I guess. So I'm going to review the different books that I picked with you guys. So the first book is Demon Copperwood by Barbara Kingsolver. And if I had to rank these in my own personal order, I think this one might be at the top. Set in the mountains of southern Appalachia, this is the story of a boy born to a teenage single mother in a single wide trailer with no assets beyond his dead father's good looks and copper-colored hair, a caustic wit, and a fierce talent for survival. In a plot that never pauses for breath, related in his own unsparing voice, he braves modern perils of foster care, child labor, derelict schools, athletic success, addiction, disastrous loves, and crushing losses. Through all of it, he reckons with his own invisibility in a popular culture where even the superheroes have abandoned rural people in favor of cities. I've heard so many great things about this book, and all these books are similar in the sense that they have a main male character who's going to go on some sort of journey. The next book that I'm going to add to the poll is The Lincoln Highway. This is by Amor Towles. So this book is set in 1950s America in June. An 18-year-old Emmett Watson is driven home to Nebraska by the warden of the work farm, where he has just served a year for involuntary manslaughter. His mother long gone, his father recently deceased, and the family farm foreclosed upon by the bank. Emmett's intention is to pick up his 8-year-old brother and head west where they can start their lives anew. The last book that I'm adding to the poll is A Gentleman in Moscow, also by Amor Towles. A Gentleman in Moscow immerses us in another elegantly drawn era with the story of Count Alexander Rostov, when in 1922 he is deemed an unrepentant aristocrat by a Bolshevik tribunal. The Count is sentenced to house arrest in the Metropole, a grand hotel across the street from the Kremlin. Rostov, an indomitable man of erudition and wit, has never worked a day in his life and must now live in an attic room while some of the most tumultuous decades in Russian history are unfolding outside the hotel's doors. So my personal ranking, if I was going to pick out the book myself, would be, I think, Demon Copperhead first, then The Lincoln Highway, and then A Gentleman in Moscow. But it is not up to me to decide what book I read next, so I'm going to post my Instagram story and then see what you guys pick. Alright, here is my next read. It's A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. Surprisingly, you guys picked the book that I personally was probably going to read last out of those 3. But the good thing is that all 3 of those books had great reviews and also a ton of reviews. So I think that this will still be a good book anyways, and I'm excited to read it. So I did want to give a little update on my thoughts for A Gentleman in Moscow. I think my Goodreads said that I'm at the 28% mark, so I'm actually a fourth of the way through this book. I just got into book 2 yesterday, and so I feel like my thoughts are still pretty not fully developed yet. I'm kind of neither here nor there about if I'm enjoying the book or not. It is a pretty easy read, and so I think I'm more interested having finished book 1. I feel like it was a lot of foreshadowing. For most of book 1, it was just kind of Count Rostov, if that's how you say it. I don't really know if that's how it's pronounced. Just figuring out, he's lived in the same hotel for quite a few years now, but now that he's trapped inside the building, he's trying to see how he can still make his life interesting and not get too repetitive or monotonous. And this little girl, Nina, that he just met kind of at the start of his quote-unquote incarceration, having to stay in the hotel, has helped him kind of develop that sense of curiosity within his building again. But the last line at the end of book 1, I was like, oh, shoot, it's foreshadowing but not foreshadowing, because it literally tells you what to expect. But I am now curious to see, as we get through books 2 through either 4 or 5, I don't remember exactly how many are in there, how are we going to get from where we're at now to that event happening. I like to give like a star rating as I'm reading. Right now it would probably be like 3.5. So it has potential to like get better, or it could go down. I have less than 100 pages to go for A Gentleman in Moscow, so I'm planning on finishing it today. I haven't given a lot of updates, and so I want to give an update now before I finish it. I'm still probably teetering in like the 3.5 to 4-star range. I can tell this book is very well written, but plot-wise there's like not a ton going on. It's just mostly the main character, Count Rostov, like talking to other people and like his relationships with other people. And it's just not as plot driven as I feel like I normally like my books to be. I can definitely see why people like this, if like this is more their cup of tea. I noticed when I was reading Although We Cannot See, it was like kind of similar feelings for me, where it's like I can see why this book is good and why other people really like it, but it's not really hitting for me. Also, the thing that I mentioned like at the end of my last talking clip, where I was like, oh, I'll be curious to see like how this plays out like by the end of the book, literally happened like the next chapter or something, because this book has a lot of like time jumps over decades. And so like the thing that I was like, oh, I can't wait to see how that happens, was like 4 years later from when I read, and then like it jumped like 4 years later very soon after. So this book does take place over decades. Alright, I just finished A Gentleman in Moscow, and I wanted to kind of give you guys my final thoughts. I ended up giving this a 3.5 stars, and it kind of just stayed, when I first talked to you guys right in the beginning about my initial thoughts, it kind of just stayed that way the whole way through. And like it's a good book. I just think that me and historical fiction, for whatever reason, just like don't get along. It reminded me of when I read All the Light We Cannot See. I know so many people love that book. It just felt a little bit flat for me because I felt like there wasn't a ton going on. And that's kind of how I felt with this book too. Not a ton going on, a lot of just conversations with the main character and the other people in his life. And to me, I feel like I want a little bit more plot going on in the book. I did enjoy the ending. I just finished my most recent read, which was A Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson, and I gotta admit, it put me in a little bit of a book slump. Like it took me forever to read. I wasn't flying through it. So I am very much looking forward to doing this video and seeing what Instagram wants to pick for my next read, because I think that both of the options are hopefully going to be really good. As a self-proclaimed member of Book Talk and BookTube, it is shocking that I have not yet read a book by Sarah J. Maas. Her most popular series is ACOTAR, but then Throne of Glass is a very, very close second. I feel like it's taken me so long to pick up these books. One, because I really haven't been a huge fantasy person, and I feel like the longer someone is in their reading journey, then like the more and more they'll start like getting into fantasy and then reading more fantasy. I have read The Red Queen recently, and I didn't mind it, but I wasn't like dying to like go back to fantasy. But I hear such good things about both of these books that I was going to have you guys decide between ACOTAR or Throne of Glass. But let me share with you guys what the books are about. I hardly even know what they're about. When 19-year-old huntress Fair, how do you say their names? This is gonna be like the hardest thing. Fire kills a wolf in the woods, a terrifying creature arrives to demand a retribution. Dragged to a treacherous magical land she knows about only from legends, Fair discovers that her captor is not truly a beast, but one of the lethal, immortal fairies who once ruled her world. Her feelings for the fairy, Tamlin, transform from icy hostility into a fiery passion that burns through every lie she's ever been told about the beautiful, dangerous worlds of the Fae. I would not pick this up had it not become as popular as it has, because like I just don't know. Throne of Glass. In a land without magic, where the king rules with an iron hand, an assassin is summoned to the castle. She comes not to kill the king, but to win her freedom. If she defeats 23 killers, thieves, and warriors in a competition, she is released from prison to serve as the king's champion. Her name is Selena Sardarthine, maybe. The crown prince will provoke her. The captain of the guard will protect her, but something evil dwells in the castle of glass, and it's there to kill. When her competitors start dying one by one, Selena's fight for freedom becomes a fight for survival and a desperate quest to root out the evil before it destroys her world. I feel like plot-wise, summary-wise, this one sounds like something I'd be more likely to pick up, but obviously we will wait to look at the poll results later so we can see what one I'm reading. Alright, so it has officially been a full 24 hours. I left the poll up for the entire time, and let's double check which one has won. It honestly was not a competition at all. It didn't change the entire time which one was winning, but the final score ended up being ACOTAR with 74% of the vote, and Throne of Glass had 26% of the vote. So I have A Court of Thorns and Roses with me. I'm going to probably start it a little bit tonight, but I already did quite a bit of reading already today, so we will see just how far I get into this book. I'm nervous. I'm nervous if I'm gonna like it. I'm nervous if the fantasy is gonna be okay. I feel like anyone who is a Sarah J. Maas fan, even if they end up loving the Throne of Glass series more, they always say to start with this series because it's like the best introduction. So I'm hoping that I like it. It's a kind of a long one. Actually, it's not that long. It's like 400 pages. I just am nervous because like I either feel like it's not gonna live up to the hype, which is upsetting, or it's going to be amazing, incredible, and I'm all of a sudden gonna have like 20 books to add to my TBR. Since this is a reading vlog, I figured I should probably talk to you guys and kind of share my first impressions with the book so far. I started it yesterday. I've been reading a little bit more today, so I'm on page 112 at the moment, which is about a fourth of the way through the book. And right now, I am liking it overall. I'm not like obsessed with it. I am like, okay, I'm in a reading mood, so I'm picking it up, and that's a good sign. Fantasy still I'm like a little unsure about. I'm liking it more than Red Queen. I feel like I am more invested in the characters in this book than I was in that book, and I'm getting to know the characters more. The fantasy is not really confusing, which is good. I have figured out the main character's name is pronounced Feyre and not whatever I was saying earlier. But it's still, like, for someone who has never watched a Twilight movie or read Twilight, like, it's giving Twilight. Like, it's just interesting having all the fantasy stuff going on, and I just don't know if I care as much as, like, a contemporary romance book where I, like, it seems a little more real. But I know that's why people love fantasy, but I'm just like, this is a half animal person, and we're making this the love interest for our normal human protagonist. I don't know. I'm still getting used to it. Okay, I'm back in my reading corner. It is now probably like day 3 or 4 of reading ACOTAR, and I'm officially halfway through the book. I am enjoying it more than when I was originally starting, and I was kind of hesitant. I feel like now that the romance is taking off more and a little more involved, and I'm more used to the characters, like it's just flowing a little bit better. I will say, I don't even know what to say because I don't know what is going on. Basically, if you're on Book Talk, you hear a lot about like the best book boyfriends, and I hear a lot about Ryzen. I don't know if that's how you say his name or not. And I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's from ACOTAR. And so, you know, I didn't know what book he was in. And so when I was reading the back of this, I was like, oh, the main character in this is Tamlin. Like, that's the main guy in it. So it's obviously not him. And then I was trying to like look up stuff a little bit of like, when does he come in the series then? And then I was starting to see stuff that I wasn't sure if I should be seeing or if I was spoiling stuff for myself. So then I quickly stopped. So I was like, maybe he's not in this book. But then now I'm confused because I was reading it today. It's funny, I was explaining all this to Sierra, like how I was like, I don't know if he's in this book or not. And then like the next like 10-20 pages that I read, there was an introduction of this new mysterious other figure that we did not learn the name of him, but he had dark hair and seemed to match Ryzen's description. So I'm like, oh, is there a love triangle that's gonna happen in this book? I don't really know. But now I'm more intrigued. So I'm going to sit, I'm going to read some more. I'm on page 209 at the moment, chapter 23. He seems kind of evil right now. But I guess we'll just have to see where that leads us. Live reaction right now of, I'm on page 393 right now, and my mouth literally just dropped open. I don't know how I didn't see that coming. I have like 20 to 30 pages left in this book, so I am on, there's a riddle thing that's like going on right now as part of this book. And when the riddle was like first introduced, I was like, the answer is gonna be this. And then like I kind of didn't think through it a lot because I was like, I don't know if it actually is or not. But I was right about the answer. So feeling pretty smart. So last night I finished A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I wanted to wait until today when I could kind of think about my thoughts and have better lighting to give my final wrap up and review of the book. I did end up giving the book 4 out of 5 stars. That was pretty like an easy review for me to decide on. In the beginning, I felt like I was more apprehensive. I just wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. So in the very beginning, I was maybe like teetering on like, is this going to be a 3-star book? But then really like the book picked up pretty quickly, and I got more invested in the characters and more interested in the plot. And by the end, I was like really invested in the book and the characters. But I didn't ever get like that 5-star feeling. I know everyone's favorite book in this series, almost everyone, is the second book. So I have a feeling I will continue the series. It's not going to be the next thing I read, but probably maybe sooner rather than later. I did really enjoy this book. I'm still kind of diving into the fantasy realm. I read The Red Queen not too long ago, and I thought this book was like that, but better. So I feel like if you're kind of deciding between the two, I thought this one was more interesting and had more going on in the plot. And I see myself continuing this series versus like Red Queen. Like I really don't know if I'm going to continue the series because I just like wasn't that invested in it. Even though I gave both of them 4 out of 5 stars, but I also feel kind of like I'm on the outside of like an inside joke between everyone who's read these books, because like I've been saying, all I ever hear about is Reasoned and how everyone loves him. And I've got to be honest, like I am growing to like him more, and I get he's a complex character, but I still kind of liked Tamlin for Feyre. So we'll just have to see how that may or may not change or progress in the second book. But all I've got to go off of right now is this book. So those are kind of my final thoughts. It was a good book. I liked it. And so if you've wanted to give it a shot, I would say pick it up and see what you think.
Who's number 1? Jay-Z? No, that's cool. It's okay. That's
Drake
okay.
number 3.
That's okay. I thought Drake was going to be number 1.
M's not even on the list.
Eminem? Who else was on the list?
Gooch.
Yeah, Gucci was on the 6, Rick Ross.
Gucci who? Gucci Mane? Was on the list, and Eminem went on the list?
Okay, so having just finished reading A Gentleman in Moscow, I'm having Instagram pick the second book that I'm going to be reading for this video. I am definitely in more of like a lighthearted romance mood, and so the 2 options that I'm posting on Instagram are going to be Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood and The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. I've heard great things about both of these books. If I had to guess which one I think you guys are going to vote for, I think it'll be Love Theoretically. I just feel like there's a little bit more hype around this one. It's a little bit newer, and I think that it's more well-known probably than The Love Wager, which honestly I'm kind of in the mood to read Ali Hazelwood as well, so this is what I'm hoping you guys pick for me. Okay, the Instagram results are in. You guys picked Love Theoretically, so we're on the same wavelength for once. I'm really looking forward to getting started with this one. Last night I also posted my next 2 books that I was contemplating reading on my Instagram stories for us to see what I'm reading next. These do not have a whole lot in common except for that they are roughly in the romance genre. I've got a YA romance, What Happens After Midnight by K.L. Walters. And then I have 7 Days in June, which is by T. Williams. Both of these are just on my physical TBR, and I'm trying to work through my physical TBR rather than buying some new books. So that's what I posted, and let's see what you guys wanted me to read. So technically there's 6 hours left in the poll, but it's a pretty big difference, and it's been about the same since I posted it. Right now it's 62% for What Happens After Midnight and 38% for 7 Days in June. I gotta admit, I'm kind of surprised. I thought this one was gonna win because I feel like more people have talked about this book than they have this book, and this one has higher ratings than this book. But honestly, I'm pretty ready to like read either of these, so I was like kind of ready for either, but I was a little bit more ready for this one because that's what I thought people were gonna pick. Regardless, this is the same author who wrote The Summer of Broken Rules, which is a 5-star read for me. I really liked that. I am kind of going in with expectations a little bit lowered because I've just heard this one's not as good, but I am hoping for just still a feel-good, fun YA romance. I probably won't start reading this until before I go to bed, so maybe I'll let you know my initial thoughts depending on how much I read later today. So I wanted to give you guys an update for my first impressions of What Happens After Midnight. I started reading this book yesterday. I'm actually pretty impressed with myself. I got to page like 120 yesterday, 117, and I didn't think I was going to get that far. My overall thoughts are I am not liking it as much as Summer of Broken Rules. I'm still enjoying it. Like, there's not like a specific thing that I don't like about it, but I think that it feels a lot like I already read it because I feel like it's kind of reminding me a lot of Today, Tonight, and Tomorrow, this book right here. And so in that sense, I'm kind of like, I feel like I already have read what this book is about, and because it's like a high school prank and they're having to work together, so in that sense, like, it really feels like the same book, kind of. I'm enjoying it though. Right now I'm kind of thinking it's probably not quite going to make the 4-star mark, but probably more so just like lack of investment rather than actually like having things that I don't like about it. I'm settling in for the night to start my reading again, so I don't know if I talked to you guys at all last night, but today is day 3 of reading What Happens After Midnight, and I am trying to, like, ideally I would love to get to page 300, but that's like 94 pages, and I just don't know if that's gonna happen tonight. But like, I've just like had it in my head of like, after the first day I made it past page 100, after day 2 I made it past page 200. It'd be great to get past page 300 and then maybe finish it tomorrow, but we'll just see. The book is fine. It's still kind of like hanging around like a 3.5, 3.75 because, like I said earlier, I just feel like I'm reading Today, Tonight, and Tomorrow, part 2, but it's been a good YA romance. I'm gonna give one last reading update for the night probably. I'm at 260. I probably am just gonna read it a little bit more. But I feel like the thing that's also getting me with this book of like why I'm just like not that invested in it is like the stakes that they're presenting in the book are not like that big of a deal. Like, they're talking all this stuff up of like, this is such a big deal, the stakes are so high, we're gonna get kicked out of school, and it's like, you're not. You're so not going to get kicked out of school. So it's just like that's not fitting with how like they're talking about it in the book. And I'm just like, you're being dramatic. Okay, so you're not here to finish off the video. It's honestly been like a couple weeks since we like last even recorded any clips for this video, but we both
got a dog,
to give.
so
We've been busy with other stuff. Sorry about the crunching in the background. That is our dog chewing on some ice. Anyways, we needed to finish giving our final thoughts and reviews on these books and then just end the video. So that's what we're gonna do. My general consensus of this book, I think I gave it the 3.5 out of 5 stars. I was generally just like, the entire way through I was saying how I just wasn't super like invested in the book and like didn't care a lot. Like, it wasn't bad, but it just like wasn't really compelling, and that's how I basically went through the whole book. So I wouldn't say you have to like go out and read this. Those are my final thoughts. I read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, and I ended up finishing like basically the entire second half of the book on one random night when our dog Vegas was actually like chilling, sleeping. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think if you enjoyed Ali Hazelwood's other novels, it's very similar in like the STEM genre. This one's based around physics, and what I liked about this one that the other books didn't really have was that the main male character was like a lot more forthcoming about his emotions pretty early on in the book compared to, I think, in most of her other books. It's like the guy waits until like the very end to be like, okay, I've liked you this whole time. So it was nice to like have that just out of the way, kind of close to the beginning of the book. And I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. We hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel down below. Let us know if you have any other book video ideas or other video ideas in general that you want to see on our channel. And we will see you next week. Bye!